Hey guys, this is Dan Strong with Excel VBA is Fun, coming at you again with another quick tip. This time it's a continuation, a part 2 if you will, regarding our list box. That was, the selection was to fill the other list box. So a quick demo and a quick recap of what we did before. Any item that we selected, it would find that ID number and it would find all of the adjoining pin numbers. So if we clicked on 001245, then these are the pin numbers that are associated with that number. So it would loop through and it would find all of the associated pin numbers or the city or the name or whatever we wanted. In this case, we happen to have selected column 4 as our ending result, but you could select any of the other columns you wanted to return. It would be just as simple. Our goal today is a little bit different. We were asked, how do you do a multi-select? How do you select more than one? Because I don't want to just select one. Maybe I want to select this one and maybe one down here or something. So we're going to show you how to do that. It's also relatively simple. But before we do that, a few quick tips and an explanation on multiple selections using a list box. So when you have this list box here, that is clearly the one that we want to click on, list box 1. There is a property called MultiSelect. So let's just zoom in on that really quick. Let's click on the control that we're talking about and go down to the M section. So here's MultiSelect. The default is FM MultiSelect single, and we don't really want to select multi, and I'll tell you why in a second, and I'll show you why. There's MultiSelect multi and there's MultiSelect extended, which is the winner, in my opinion. Let me show you what FM MultiSelect multi looks like. So yes, I can click on this one, and then I click on another one. I'm not holding control, I'm not holding shift. It's just automatically assuming I want to select more and more and more, which gives me limited control over this. Honestly, I don't like that. The only way to deselect one is to click on it again, and then it would be deselected. You cannot really click and drag it. When you click and drag, it assumes that whichever one you release the mouse on, that's the one that you wanted to select. So it's really hard if you have several that you want to select. That's why I don't really like multi. Here's what I really want to do is the multi-extended. So I'm going to go down to the M, here it is. So we're going to use FM MultiSelect Extended. Let me show you that really quick before we continue. So first of all, I can click, and then I can, if I click away, it's just like in a Windows environment. It's going to go ahead and just select the one item you want. Now if I hold the control key and I click around, it's going to add them or deselect them as I hold the control. Now when I release the control, if I click away, well then I've just ruined it. Now the other thing you can do is, I'm going to hold the shift button now. And so when you hold the shift button in Windows or in this particular scenario, it's going to allow you to extend your selection all the way up until that point. And then you can control click. I'm going to release shift. Now I'm going to control click. And then I can select all these individual files without the extend selection going all the way down. So that's how holding shift and holding control works. You probably already know that if you're a Windows user, that's how you can use files as well with multiple selection. Okay, but that's the multi-select extended, and it's amazing, and it's what you want. Also, if you just click and drag, it's just like as if you're holding the shift key. It's wonderful. So that's why this is better. Now you may have noticed that even though I have all this beautiful code here, it's not really running the way we think. And so you might think, well, what the heck? I have a click event. Isn't it triggering? Well, let me click here. Let's see, it's not even triggering, right? I put a breakpoint. I clicked right here and made a breakpoint. By the way, you can hit F9 and do the same thing. But I made a breakpoint, so it should have started running and like stopped with this beautiful yellow line here. It didn't. So what's the deal? Well, it's kind of an undocumented thing. It's not really in the documentation, but when you change a list box to MultiSelect or MultiSelect Extended, it seems that it's not exactly going to work the way we think. The click event, rather, is not really going to trigger, but there's lots of other options, so don't worry. What we're going to do, while we have this list box, by the way, I just double-clicked on it to get to the Visual Basic editor for this user form, particularly in this list box. Click event. I don't want the click event. I know that it really doesn't work. It's kind of wonky. You could use a change event, but that would be basically anytime anything changes in the list box, including adding an item, I believe. So I don't really want I don't really want that. I don't want the user to have to double click, because guess what? If you double click, then that's kind of like selecting a single item and it's just messy. So what I would prefer to use is actually the mouse up. So whenever they release the mouse, not when they click it down at first, because I want them to be able to drag their selection, and the second they release their mouse on the mouse up event, so I'm going to click on mouse up, that's when I want the click to be completed and the event to actually trigger. And fun fact, I can prove to you that the mouse up does work, because I'm going to put the word stop here to create my own little breakpoint. And so if I click there and release the mouse, it does trigger the mouse up event, even though the stupid click event doesn't work for MultiSelect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my beautiful code and Control C, Command C if you're on a Mac, and now I'm going to paste them with Control V, and so now we can actually do something with that information. So before I trigger this macro, a couple things. Let's just think through this. I'm going to go ahead and stop it, and I want to scroll down, just look at this. So obviously we want to get the last row. That's a good thing. We want to get the last row in this data set, so we can go from the second row all the way to the bottom and try to find all the entries. The only thing is, in the previous session, we only had one single value. We're like, okay, this is the single value, so we're just going to put a variable. We're going to call it curval, and we're going to start desperately seeking out any items that happen to have the ID number of the current val, whatever's in this variable, this container right here. So the only difference right now is now we're no longer dealing. I'm going to put a comment here with an apostrophe. So not just one value, but whichever were selected. Okay, so now we're not just dealing with one value. So in order to get multiple values, we have to do a loop. And so we're going to do that. We're going to do another for something equals something to something. A for next loop is what that's called. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to do a variable instead of X or Y. I'll do something a little more specific. So I'm going to use the selected item, which is just a word I made up. This is not a specific VBA thing. You could name it whatever you want, pretty much. I'm going to say for the cell item, the selected item is going to be, and I'm going to use the lbound function. What that's going to do, I'm going to use it on the me.listbox1.list. Okay, so let me show you what that means right after I finish typing this line. All the way to the upper boundary, the ubound of me.listbox1.list. Okay, so now, and I'm of course going to say next cell item to be explicit about it. What I'm saying here is, okay, so this variable is going to loop from the lower boundary, or the very first entry in the list, whatever the list is inside my list box. So it'll probably be 0. I think this is an index of starting with 0 instead of with 1. So it's going to be 0 all the way to whatever the upper boundary is. So whatever number of items are in there. You could also do, I think, instead of ubound, you could just say for cell item equals 0, 2, and you could do like me.listbox1.list, and I think you could do, maybe you could do .count or count items or something like. I think I saw it just a moment ago. List count, thank you, right here instead of the ubound. But this is just another way to skin the same cat. So let's go ahead and proceed with this, and let's put the stop breaker. Well, not yet. So we're going to loop through there, just planning ahead just a little bit more. The other thing we have to do is determine whether a specific item is selected. So for that, we need a new technique. We need an if-then statement. And I'm going to show you how to use it. So we're going to say if me.listbox1, and remember me just represents whatever container we are in. In this case, we're in the container called Userform1. If we were typing code into a sheet, if we were typing code into a module, me could represent a very different thing. So just be aware of where you're at. But anyway, it's rather than typing Userform1 and then a week later you change it to Userform5 or something, or change it to a specific name, then you'd have to change all these Userform1 dot whatevers to something else. But if you use me, it's more dynamic. Okay. So if me, the current container.listbox1.selected, and now you would think that that's good enough, but it actually, you have to specify the index. So let's open our parentheses, and it says, hey, what's the index that you're talking about? Like which item, the 0th item, or the last item number, I think 14 it is, or whatever. So we have a variable that represents the exact index number, and it's going in a loop from the very beginning, 0, to the very end. So let's just put that in there, cell ITM. So if that index, if the current index we're looping through dot selected is true, meaning it's selected, then so it is selected. This particular index number is. Okay, so then let's do end if. And then we're pretty much done. Now all we have to do, see, we wanted to get the current value of the currently selected item. So really all we have to do is just kind of, first of all, the loop here is going to be the inner or the outermost loop. So we're going to start by getting each value one at a time. And once we find those values, then we'll go and add some items to the second list box because we found them. So really we need to pull this and paste it over inside here. Once we find each individual item, each one gets its own loop through the worksheet. So let's go ahead and pull this information, Control X to cut it, and then we're going to go here and we're just going to paste it right here. Now because these were aligned all the way to the left, we want to kind of select them all and tab to indent them so that we can clearly see this is the innermost part of our multi-tiered kind of loop here. So first we're looping through the first list box for each and every item selected, and once we find one, then we're looping through every cell in our worksheet. And then we find the next selected item once it's selected, and then we go back once again to the worksheet and go through all the items and basically add even more items to the list box number 2 at the bottom. Okay, so that's the idea of what we're going to be doing. So here's how we can implement it. Obviously it's not done yet because curval, we can't actually get the me.listbox1.value because now we have multiple selections. So we're going to go ahead and we have the item number. We know that it's selected, so we can actually take that same theory. Let's go ahead. I'm going to hit undo really quick. Let's go ahead and put a breakpoint right about here. I'm going to hit F8 and just let you see what happens. So I'm going to select these 2 items and release my mouse. That's good enough. Now we have 2 items. So we have the mouse up event. The last row is 101 in our worksheet. We're clearing out the second list box because you want to do that every time you release the mouse, so it'll do a brand new thing. So let's scooch this over here and scooch our user form a little bit over there. And let's just look at our progress. I think we've made a lot more progress than perhaps you understand, or maybe you already know that. But so we're going to go from 0, which is the lower boundary of the list, and 14 is the upper boundary. So there's 0 to 14, which is actually 15 items. So if we hit F8, the first item is going to be item number 0, which we happen to know is 001245. So if that item is selected, let's hover over that. It says true if I hover. So I'm going to hit F8 and boom, we're in. That one is selected. The first one and the second one are going to be selected. So rather than saying listbox1.value, which doesn't even exist anymore with the multi-select environment, there's no value. There's multiple values potentially. So what we're going to do is we're going to do me.listbox1.list, and we're going to open up our parentheses, and it's going to accept a kind of a row index and a column. Right now we only have 1 column, I think, that we're using, so that makes it pretty easy for the second parameter. But what's the list index? Right, it's the selected item, or whatever variable name you might have put the letter Y or another word that you've chosen. But anyway, right now we're looking at index number 0 for the row, and the column, we're just going to say column 0 because we only have 1 and it is a 0 index, I believe. Let's go ahead and check that. So if I hover over it, it gives me a clue that I was right. 001245 is row 0, column 0, for the list box's list.list. So if we hover over that, we see that that's good. So we're going to throw that current value over there, and you know, the rest of it kind of works on its own. So let's just hit let's hit F5 or click the little run button here, and that way it'll zoom all the way until it gets to the next item that it found that is selected, which we know is going to be item 2 is going to be selected. So let's hit F5 or click that button. So we've obtained all of the pin numbers for that ID, and now we're ready to selection. We're looking at item number 1. The first one was item number 0. So yep, that's selected, so that's why we're here. And then if we hover here, 001244, sure enough, that is the next one. So curval is now taking that spot. And so now it's going to be looking to see if column A of each row is equal to the new curval, the new current value. So then let's go ahead and zoom to the point where we get past this loop. So I'll put the word stop because I want to see that at that point. Okay, we've just expanded this part here. And so the next thing that we want to do really quickly is I just want to show you that what it looks like when they're not selected. So we go to the next cell item, the next index number from 0 to 14. Now if we hover over this one, item number 2, which is this guy right here, if you hover over it, is it dot selected? No, it's false. So it's going to skip over all the rest of them. And let me hit F5. Let's hit the apostrophe, or we could just take out the word stop. If we hit F5 at this point, it's done running. It's completely done. It just found those 2 items. Now, let's try it a different way. So I'm going to, let's go ahead and let it run. What I want to do is control click. So as I release the mouse, you see that this list gets different each time. So if I control click the first one, that one's taken off of the list. Control click this one, and now I'm going to control click, or what I could do is I can start here and I'm going to shift click all the way down to here. And once I release the mouse, it found the IDs for just for these 5, the pins for just for those 5 selected. If I start control clicking, of course, it will change its mind to only those 2 selected until nothing is selected. So that's how to use the MultiSelect extended, and that is how we kind of modify this to include and find all of the pins that we selected immediately. We don't even need a button. We just use the click up event and it works. Okay, well, we'll see you in the next video, and thanks so much for watching. And don't forget to check out our e-store, which is always current with the latest courses that we're releasing, and it has the latest blog information on our website at excelvbasfun.com. And any other amazing tools. We have some new courses that are coming out soon that are going to reveal for free some really amazing tools that we found that go well beyond the scope of Excel's built-in capabilities on the surface. That'll allow us to do some really amazing things. So please check that out at the link below or perhaps above, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.